My morning was ordinary. I made coffee. I opened the blinds. I watched trees drop their leaves like unhurried confessions. But the message sat there in my inbox like a turning point. Not dramatic, just present. Water under the bridge. That phrase. So casual, so common, so weighted with erasure. It wasn't written with cruelty. It was the opposite. It was written with comfort. A comfort that presumed my pain was ordinary and therefore easily dispelled. A comfort that assumed my quiet was synonymous with forgiveness. I reheated my coffee twice. Then, to occupy the tension, I walked to the small desk in the corner of my apartment, the one facing a blank wall, and opened my notebook. I didn't write words at first. I stared at the blank page. In episode 2, I learned the difference between distance and boundaries. In episode 3, I learned that silence could be a declaration, not a retreat. Episode 4 taught me autonomy. Episode 5 taught me the power of presence without reaction. Episode 6 taught the world could see what family once could not. But today was about the invitation I did not ask for. I wrote slowly. Reconciliation without responsibility is control disguised as kindness. I paused, then added, normalization is a strategy, not a solution. I closed the notebook. Not all thoughts need expansion. Some just need acknowledgement. I made lunch, soup and warm bread. There was no hunger in me, just nourishment. Emotional tension doesn't soften with food, but a body can still be fed. At 2 o'clock, I decided to go for a walk. The neighborhood was quiet. People walked dogs. Leaves rustled like soft confessions. I passed a florist arranging chrysanthemums in yellows and whites, a spectrum of quiet promise. I didn't buy flowers. I just watched someone else bring beauty into form. It was a kind of meditation. I checked the time on my phone. No new messages. I walked back home and sat on the couch. My mind was calm, but alert. The evening approached with no sudden movements, like a tide that rises without noise. Then, 30 minutes before sunset, another message arrived. From a different sibling. I talked to Mom. Dad wants to make peace. We all do. Dinner next Saturday. Please say yes. I didn't read it right away. The words rested beneath the notification badge like a heartbeat. I waited. I knew what we all do meant. They wanted normalcy. They wanted closure without conversation. They wanted to move forward without looking back. I uploaded neither defense nor acceptance. In past episodes, I might have felt the need to clarify, to justify my boundary. But not now. I simply observed. My silence was not emptiness. It was intentional. I sat with the silence. I allowed myself to notice how a silent space could reflect presence, not absence. Night came. I made tea. I didn't think of the dinner. I thought of water. Of bridges, of what was real and what was convenient. I slept with the window slightly open. The wind made its way in like a whisper that didn't need permission. I liked the cold. It reminded me I was here, present, choosing. The next morning, the third message came. This time, from my sister. You don't have to say anything. Just come. It's a small dinner. We'll be on our best behavior. That line stayed with me. We'll be on our best behavior. As if this were a performance. As if they understood that what I wanted was not connection, but containment. That what I craved was not healing, but civility. That message was different. It didn't pretend there was no history. It acknowledged it sideways, like a person glancing at a wound but refusing to look at the scar. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a folder on my laptop marked personal. Inside were drafts I had written during the earlier episodes. Letters I never sent, truths I never shared. Not out of fear. Out of choice. One was dated the day after the will reading. Just a paragraph. It said, one day, they'll pretend nothing happened. One day, they'll send invitations instead of apologies. One day, they'll call silence peace. I hope I'll be ready. I read the words again, slowly. And I realized, that day is today. They weren't wrong. Time had passed. But water under a bridge only flows if there's movement. If the bridge still connects. If what's beneath it hasn't turned to stone. This wasn't a river anymore. It was dry ground. And I wasn't crossing back. That afternoon, I received a calendar invite. The subject line was Family Dinner, Saturday, 7 p.m. No message. Just a timestamp. Just an assumption. The location, my parents' house. I looked at the map automatically, even though I remembered the address by heart. Memory isn't always voluntary. I didn't decline the invite. I didn't accept it either. I let it sit, like a question I no longer needed to answer. Saturday arrived. Not with weight, but with clarity. I went about my day as usual, coffee, reading, a walk at noon. My phone remained silent, save for one gentle buzz around 3 p.m. A reminder. Dinner tonight. Hope you'll come. Hope. It's a soft word. It disguises expectation as generosity. I didn't respond. At 6:45 p.m., I turned on the lamp in the living room and sat down with a book I'd been meaning to finish. It was a quiet novel about a man who disappears from his own life without leaving town. I found him relatable. The dinner would have started by now. I imagined the driveway. Familiar cars parked in their old positions, coats draped over the same hooks, laughter filling the same kitchen I once stood silent in. I imagined my chair empty. I imagined my name surfacing once or twice, carefully. Maybe he's stuck in traffic. Maybe he's just taking space. They wouldn't say what they really feared. Maybe he's not coming back. Maybe he means it. I didn't need to imagine long. At 7:13 p.m., the first message arrived. We saved you a seat. Hope everything's okay. I read it. I didn't answer. At 7:48 p.m., it's not the same without you. And then, at 8:06 p.m., a voice message from my sister. I didn't play it right away. I waited until the clock hit 8:30. Then, with the volume low and the lights dimmed, I listened. Hey, I guess you're not coming. That's okay. I mean, it's not, but I get it. Everyone's just a little confused. You've changed a lot, which is good, I think. But yeah, we're here anyway. If you ever feel like coming back. Coming back. To what? That was always the unspoken question. What they offered wasn't connection, it was choreography. A dance where I knew the steps, but no longer liked the music. They wanted the illusion of wholeness, the appearance of unity, the visual of nothing's wrong, so they wouldn't have to do the work of repair. I stood up, walked to the window. The street outside was empty, not lonely, just still. That's when I felt it. A moment of clarity, so complete it felt like quiet applause. Not attending was not revenge. It wasn't even resistance. It was simply the truth. My absence wasn't a message. It was a mirror. They could fill a room, set a table, pour wine, light candles, but they couldn't manufacture what they had broken. At 9:12 p.m., one final message came. From my mother. We tried. The rest is up to you. It wasn't cruelty. It was closure, their version of it. They needed the night to end with a clear conscience. And in their mind, they had done their part. That was the trap. The dinner was never about food or company. It was about resetting the narrative. About pulling me back without pulling themselves forward. About making the silence mine, not theirs. I closed the phone and set it face down. Outside, someone walked their dog under the streetlight. The dog paused at every tree, curious but calm. I envied that kind of attention to the present. In the kitchen, the light was soft. I made tea, chamomile and mint. The water boiled. I poured it slowly. Rituals, I had learned, were a kind of anchor. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad. I just felt sure. They said it was water under the bridge. But they never asked if I had crossed it. The following morning, I woke up early. Not from restlessness, but rhythm. I opened the blinds and let in the gray light of Sunday, soft, undecided. There was no dramatic closure in the air. Just the quiet of another day beginning. No new messages. No missed calls. Just stillness. That was the real consequence. Not rage. Not confrontation. Not a flurry of follow-ups demanding explanations. Just silence. A mirror of my own, now returned to them. I opened my notebook again. The same one where I had written. Reconciliation without responsibility is control disguised as kindness. This time I added, silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means, we're done speaking. I went for a walk, the same path as the day before, but something felt different. Not in the world. In me. There's a shift that happens when you finally stop waiting for an apology. When you stop treating absence as a question. I had once thought that forgiveness required words. Now I saw it could exist in the act of choosing not to return. Not returning isn't always abandonment. Sometimes it's respect. For the self that emerged after the damage. I passed by the florist again. Today, the chrysanthemums were orange. I paused, then walked in. Looking for anything in particular? The florist asked. I shook my head. Just something calm. She smiled and pointed to a small bouquet in a glass jar. These are quiet, but they last longer than you think. I bought them. Back home, I placed them in the center of the table. No symbolism, just presence. At noon, my phone buzzed once. A message from an old colleague. Not family. Just someone who had seen me speak at a recent conference. Your talk stayed with me. The way you didn't over-explain anything. Just clarity. Rare these days. I read it twice. Clarity. It echoed louder than anything I hadn't said the night before. I replied simply, "Thank you." Then I put the phone down and sat with my tea and the flowers. This was the turn they didn't anticipate. That I wouldn't react. That I wouldn't retaliate. That I wouldn't return. They had expected the dinner to soften the silence. But it had only revealed how complete it already was. They laughed first. I stayed quiet.